Hello, welcome back to Guitar Solo Dojo. Jason Moore here, and you just saw the Crazy Train solo. And as you might have noticed right away, I do things a little bit different than most of the time that you might see. So we're going to break that down, and I'll tell you why I did it. So I was just examining that solo, and I was listening to the isolated tracks, and I heard some things that I don't really ever notice in transcriptions necessarily. And a lot of transcriptions get most of the parts really, really close, or if not right on. But there's a couple things in there that I noticed that I haven't seen, and so I thought I'd point them out. Then a couple other things that I know that he didn't do for a fact. I shouldn't say for a fact, but I'm pretty sure he didn't do. But I do them like that anyway because I think it sounds more like the record because of how he recorded it. So first of all, there's a couple little nuances. When you look at the music for this, you might see right away it starts with this tapping line. Right, this cool little sextuplet tapping line. What I notice when I listen to it, from what I hear, he doesn't actually tap on the first beat. It just sounds like this. He doesn't tap until the second beat, so it's... Now the next little section here, that's just a minor detail, by the way. It's not that big of a deal. You can tap through it if you think it's there. It doesn't really matter. That's just what I picked out. And I only do it because I think it's kind of cool. And then the next part, the part that I always see transcribed very differently and sometimes very, very confusing. One of the most common ways I see it transcribed is just see this note bent up and tapped. Something along those lines, which would certainly work, certainly sounds pretty good. But from when I listen to the isolated track, what I hear is something more like this. And it's hard to know exactly what he did because when I watch the live videos for it, they always tend to pan away from the guitar. They like show the bass player or something like that, or Ozzy when he's playing that section of the solo. And part of that might be because in the recording, you know, at least for part of the song, I assume for the whole song, he had a whammy bar on his guitar. But on the live versions, a lot of times, the ones that I've seen, one in this sort of studio setting, he's just using a Les Paul with no whammy bar on it. So he might have altered the way he did it, and so they pan away. They don't show that part for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But anyway, what I see is a whammy bar dip. What I hear... Anyway, that might be right, might be wrong, but I think it sounds really close to the record. The next part is pretty common. Everybody knows how to do this, I think. Now the next little section, the tapping part, is led into by this little part of the pentatonic run. And sometimes I see that, sometimes I don't, but it's definitely there. And then, this is the part that you'll definitely notice I do differently. And I know it's incorrect. However, I think it sounds more like the record because if you've watched any videos or if you've done any research on this, you know that he doubles his solos. Maybe all of the tracks, I'm not sure, but at least the solos are doubled. And when you do that and you play a really fast part, especially something that's not necessarily perfectly timed, you'll have two parts that are slightly out of sync. And so that's what happens when this part comes in. When I hear it, it sounds like it's going a lot faster than it really is because there's this little out of sync nature of those two parts recorded. So I add in a right hand to create a really, really fast trill. So I'm tapping on the same note that my left hand is hammering onto. So I'm doing this. Now the advantage of that is I can go a whole lot faster. Anyway, I think it sounds cool, and you can try it. It's kind of fun anyway. And then leading out of that, you do this little run. And I've seen that written lots of different ways, but that's what I hear. So hopefully that's actually accurate. This is, interestingly enough, I've seen that written different ways too, but what I'm hearing, and I've actually seen it written like this as well, is... Now the final line here, this one is the killer. And so much so that, I don't know if this is why he did it, but when you watch the live videos, I don't really ever hear the last line being played like it is in the studio. The studio version that I was, the studio setting when they recorded it live, that I was referring to before, where he didn't have the whammy bar on it, that line he changed. Instead of this long 16th and sextuplet run, he changed it to this. So that's kind of what the line looks like, or sounds like, when he's playing it in that live setting. And that's a straight 16th note, rather than going from here, which you have a 16th run, right to sextuplets. Now the really tricky part there is this. At speed, right? At slow speed, it's not a big deal. Of course, everything gets more challenging when you play it faster, but it goes from 16ths to sextuplets. Anyway, really cool run. But once again, that replacement run was this. That's a very, very usable way of creating the same effect of the line without torturing yourself trying to get that sextuplet run perfect. Anyway, so a few things that I thought I'd point out in that Crazy Train solo. It's a song that I learned first when I was 12 years old, a long time ago. One of the first riffs I actually ever learned. Didn't get to the solo until much later. But anyway, it's something I've always found fun and fascinating. So hope you enjoy it. Have a good time.